A spat between the upper moons of Demon Slayer was inevitable, but with our last what-if ending at a freed Akaza cornered by Doma, what will the outcome of this impending battle be? And if you haven't watched the first part, just click here, or the link in the description. Let's begin! Realizing that Doma has been sent here to capture him, Akaza gets anxious. However, he instantaneously severs Doma's arm impaled in his body and jumps back. Tamayo, Yushiro, and Tanjiro watch in horror as Yushiro once again suggests Lady Tamayo to run away and leave Tanjiro behind as bait. However, Tamayo immediately strikes down the idea, looking over the ridiculousness of the proposal, and stating that it won't be too easy to run away from the upper moon. And not to mention, there might even be some backup demons waiting to ambush them. Doma taunts Akaza once again, mentioning he's still as weak as the day they last met in an effort to anger him. Filled with rage, Akaza moves forward and uses Destructive Death. However, all the shockwaves are swiftly countered by Doma's cryokinetic ice sculptures. While amidst the battle, Doma looks over at the trio standing at the second floor and with a sadistic smile on his face utters the words, "𝐿𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐤." Just kidding! Doma waves his fan in their direction in an effort to kill them. Immediately, a gust of cold wind flows past Tanjiro and the others. Tamayo and Yushiro are struck with disbelief as the attack wasn't even able to scratch them. As the trio looks down on the two upper moons laying waste to the nearby houses, suddenly a volley of ice spears rains down on them from behind. The spears impale the unsuspecting Tamayo and Yushiro, knocking them out of the house. However, as soon as one of the spears approaches Tanjiro, Nezuko erupts out of Tanjiro's wooden box and blocks it while simultaneously transforming into her adult state. Tanjiro turns around to find an ice clone of Doma standing in the room with a smile just as grim as the original demon. Meanwhile, Akaza struggles to close the distance between him and Doma as none of his attacks connect due to Doma's ice shields. Frustrated, Akaza lets out a primal scream and dashes right towards Doma in desperation, only to get impaled with an ice statue summoned by the upper two. Akaza's body starts freezing from the inside as Doma comes closer and whispers in his ears that witnessing him get assimilated into Muzan once again would be ecstatic to watch. Once again, Akaza ruminates about his past life, and an image of his master appears before him, reminding him of the importance of his name and that he has something to protect. Akaza taps into his anger and unleashes Destructive Death upon himself, with his legs severing his body into two parts. Doma gets caught in the attack as well, but he quickly regenerates, displaying his superior regenerative capabilities. Meanwhile, Tanjiro and Nezuko battle Doma's clone at a noticeable disadvantage. The clone unleashes yet another ice avalanche towards Tanjiro at an insane speed, much to his horror. Tanjiro's life flashes before his eyes as the cold snow approaches him. However, as the ice is about to touch his body, Nezuko pushes Tanjiro out of the way, getting both her hands cut off in the process. Much like Jax from Mortal Kombat, but a bit lighter in color, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Nezuko's blood splashes all over the place, painting the snow blood red. The clone once again swings his fan to create another snow attack, but Nezuko immediately regenerates her hands and activates her blood demon art, lighting the snow on fire with the spilled blood, filling up the room with smoke and dust. Once the dust settles, we see the clone still standing with a damaged body ready to unleash another attack. Tanjiro takes a fighting stance ready to battle the clone, but suddenly a hole opens up in the chest of the clone and it melts away. Both Tanjiro and Nezuko get confused as to what is happening, and that is when Yushiro removes a talisman from his head and reveals that he punched the clone through the chest using an invisibility talisman. Tanjiro too enters the room and explains that with everyone's help, the five of them can ward off Doma, as the sun will rise within an hour. Meanwhile, Akaza regenerates his lower body, but starts getting thrown around by Doma's ice angels, while the upper two nonchalantly ask him to give up, as he is going to lose sooner or later. Akaza manages to find footing, takes his Soryu-style stance, and initiates the technique development and compass needle simultaneously. Akaza reveals that he had been saving this technique to kill Kokushibo, but his good fortune has led him to use it on him. As the needle on Akaza's compass hits 6, his feet strike the ground, creating a massive crater and propelling the demon towards Doma at an unbelievable speed. Doma, with a disappointed expression on his face, summons an Ice Buddha statue and asks Akaza if he learned nothing in all these years he's lived. As soon as Akaza is about to get hit by the Buddha statue, the needle on his compass changes direction, and so does Akaza. The needle starts going haywire as Akaza starts encircling Doma at tremendous speed. Suddenly, the needle stops at 12, and Akaza emerges out of his formation behind Doma and and unleashes a barrage of destructive death upon the former comrade. Doma's body bursts into smithereens, and so does the Buddha statue. Akaza gives off a grin as he just dispersed the prickliest thorn in his eyes, but as he raises his head to celebrate the victory, Doma grabs his arm from behind once again and starts freezing it, revealing that he switched with a clone at the very last second. Doma belittles Akaza, stating that he won't ever be as strong as him because he isn't subscribed to the channel. However, Akaza severs his own hand and jumps backward, exclaiming that he was the first subscriber. Haha, just kidding. Suddenly, as Doma unfurls his fans in order to continue the assault, a wave of air filled with flowers creates a blockade between him and Akaza. The attack fades and Akaza vanishes right in front of Doma's eyes. As Doma tries to process what just happened, he's swept off his feet by an unknown force and tossed onto the floor. His arms get restrained by an invisible force, and suddenly, an attack hits his neck, but he manages to stop it by freezing the area around his neck with ice harder than rock. It is revealed that Nezuko, Akaza, and Tanjiro attack Doma wearing invisibility talismans, and currently, Akaza holds Doma on the ground while Tanjiro tries to decapitate him. With only minutes left until sunrise, Doma feels the force of Akaza's hand on his and starts freezing them. Akaza orders Tanjiro to hurry it up, as he doesn't want to get toasted in the sun along with him, while Tanjiro tries his best to move the blade through the ice in Doma's neck. Fearing that an opportunity like this won't come around for another century, Yushiro gives up on his stubbornness to protect Lady Tamayo and joins in on the effort. He places his hands on Doma's head and enters his mind, but finds nothing except cold, unending darkness, reflecting the fact that Doma has no emotions to manipulate, only cold-blooded sadism. He is taken aback when he sees the sun rising behind Akaza and runs to find shade. Akaza declares that dying might be worth it if he's able to drag Doma to hell with him as well. As the sun's rays slowly race towards Akaza, Tanjiro exerts all his strength into a final push and starts cracking the ice on Doma's neck. Akaza spots this and encourages Tanjiro to finish it. However, Tanjiro takes a look at the sun behind Akaza and realizes that they won't make it. But suddenly, Akaza is kicked into the shade by Nezuko as she takes on the full force of the sunlight. Doma tries to move out of the way, but the sun's rays act quickly and turn his body to ash in a matter of seconds, killing the upper two for good. Tanjiro rushes towards Nezuko, whose skin starts burning due to the sun's rays. In a desperate attempt, he runs for his wooden box, but hears a very familiar voice for the first time in years. He turns around, and for the first time in years, there stands an unmuzzled Nezuko with healed-up wounds. Tanjiro runs towards her and folds her up in his arms, with tears flowing out of his eyes. He thanks God for their mercy, and so does Nezuko, repeating everything her brother says, like a baby. Akaza, Yushiro, and Tamayo aren't able to believe their eyes as they lay their sights on the strongest being in the entire world, Nezuko Kamado. This news reaches the headquarters where Kaguya is informed of everything by the Kasugai crows. He's ecstatic. However, fearing a worse fate waiting to befall the Kamado siblings, he immediately calls for a Hashira meeting, sending out crows to everyone. Akaza, Tanjiro, and Nezuko are seen traveling towards the location as Oyakata-sama has extended a friendly hand towards the former Upper Moon demon and wants to meet him in person. Along the way, Nezuko is relearning how to speak with Tanjiro, and upon seeing this sight, Akaza is reminded of his own family and how his father chose death over medicines, which were a product of his thievery. But more so than his family, Akaza looked towards the sky, longing for another person. A part of him could never become one with him. That person was his promised bride, Koyuki. Nezuko looks over at the gloomy Akaza and strides towards him with her tiny little steps. As she reaches him, she hands Akaza a tiny wild flower, stating that flowers make people happy, so smile. As soon as Nezuko hands the flower over, a number of fireworks are shot off in the moonless sky, filling it up with colors. Akaza promises Koyuki through the fireworks that he'll repent for what he did and set things straight. Meanwhile, at the Infinity Castle, all the demons are summoned. As the 4 upper demons arrive, they wonder if an upper moon got killed by the Demon Slayer Corps. Muzan enters the Infinity Castle, and announces that the wait is finally over, and that a demon who is resistant to the sun has taken form on this earth. As soon as Muzan finishes talking, all the lights in the Infinity Castle flicker, and the temperature drops, as a cold wind blows midst the upper moon, marking the entrance of someone sinister. But you know how we roll. 10K likes and we'll drop part 3.